morning to all attendees. We are waiting 4 minutes more, please, to wait other attendees to enter the session, and then we'll begin from a later session. Thanks very much.
morning. Good morning to everyone.
Oh yes, sorry. I'm mute. I was mute. I was talking, but I was mute. So sorry to everyone. Always fighting with technology, even when I'm supposed to be an expert. Welcome everybody. Thank you for your time to sharing this reflection about the new changes to the Swift customer security controls for 2024. During this session, the microphones will be muted, but at the end of the session, during the questions and answers, we can unmute you so you can make any comment you may want to share, or during the session, you could also write questions, and we have people in the background helping us to discuss the answers. If during the session we cannot answer or give you a precise, accurate response to your question, we can come afterwards offline or via email to respond. The presentation is expected to take about 20 minutes, at most half an hour. And after that, there will be the questions and answer session. So yes, let's begin with this. I'm going to share.
Raul, let's just turn on. Yeah, please turn. And if you
Yes.
can, please take control of the presentation. You can share your screen.
Thank you very much, Ben. So I'm saying that I could stop. Let me continue here. Bear with me, guys. Yes, and then
Great, we
presentation.
are seeing your computer.
Thank you very much. And then sharing. Well,
Yeah.
thanks. This presentation is to cover only one change that Swift have made for 2024. Usually they include several changes, but this year there is only one, so we have added some other reflections for everybody. So the first point is just that, to wrap up where we are, to reflect where we are in the whole customer security program for this year, 2024, for this attestation in 2024. The only change the mainly change, because there are always some minor changes that we are not covering during this presentation. The readiness for the coming change for another control that will be mentioned afterwards, the architecture tree, and other considerations we have included in this presentation. As we can see, from 2017, when this control framework was launched, there have been 17 controls in 2017, and now let me try to change this pointer. During 2024, we have 32 controls, where 25 are mandatory. So there are 9 controls after the 16 that were mandatory in 2017 to this year, where it is highlighted that one control for this year is promoted to mandatory. So the main change, I would say, for the customer security controls framework is the promotion of control 2.8 that has to do with outsourced critical activity protection, which is an organizational control, which has become mandatory. And the announcement of a new change that is planned to be phased in, well, the Swift is suggesting to begin the work, the identification and assessment of control 2.8, which is still mandatory for 2024, for the flow of data in the back office, the connection between the back office and the secure zone for Swift devices and applications. in this slide, what we can see here is, well, we have titled this how many controls, because since there are five main architectures for the complexities of different banks, there is not easy to identify and make the separations between these architecture types. In other situations, some controls are different to this table. So we have to analyze control by control and against which elements or in-scope components of Swift are in place in order to decide which of these controls apply. So this table is a general table, and in a real analysis and during the assessment, these controls should be verified one by one according to according to the in-scope components, risk drivers, and the architecture in place. So in this slide, we are highlighting the control 2.8, which is that for 2024 is become mandatory, which has to do with outsourced critical activity. This outsourced activity is very usual nowadays. Many banks and organizations are moving to the digital transformation processes where the core activities are more kind of administrative than having everything in the office and a lot of people managing that in place. So it is a common situation that everything is moving to the cloud in different phases, and organizations and having some or many, depending on the organization and the structure and complexity of their activities or hardware or application hosted in different services in the cloud. So for Swift, the client, the customer is responsible even if they host or outsource any activity, unless the activity is contracted and the contractor comes to on premises, to the building, to the offices to carry out these activities, to perform these activities. So there is also some nuances, some gray areas to analyze in this control, but in general terms, every time that one of the main controls or activities involved in scope for this control assessment, for this independent assessment, is the responsibility of the client, then if this activity is outsourced, the customer keeps the responsibility of that. And when it comes to the independent assessment, then there are some other alternatives to get assurance of the control operation effectiveness. When it comes to this control 2.5, 2.4, which has an A as advisory, is still advisory during 2024. What Swift has began, sorry for my errors in my grammar in English, it's still in progress. What Swift is advising customers is to prepare for this mandatory change that will come later. They have not set any specific date. They have not set any specific date at this moment, but they are announcing that it is going to become mandatory, and they are advancing to begin this year because they are expecting some complexities while enforcing these controls for the back office data security, data flow security. I don't know if there is any question, Ruben, over there. The next point, which enters in what we called, is additional considerations, because this is not a change for Swift. It's more a reminder or reflection, because since we have about 5 or 6 years conducting these assessments, the main worries, the main concerns of the institution involved in the attestation is production, is the main architecture. Usually the time it was allocated to invest all of the efforts to assess what is in production for Swift. However, the maturity of these controls requires to verify any other component that is connected or is inside the secure zone for Swift, or otherwise one of these components could be shared or implemented in another environment from the company. And then we need to zoom in these aspects to bring and raise the bar as Swift is expecting, because one of the reasons Swift has implemented the certification for 2024 in the assessors as a company and then employees or certified assessors is to make a consistent assessment, raising the quality and the standard of this assessment. So when it comes to the architecture type, just in a general sense, in a similar way as some controls don't necessarily apply in a particular architecture because, for example, one component is not present. Swift usually to make an example of that is for virtualization. So it could be still at these ages where an implementation doesn't include virtualization for the Swift components. So it will drop that control from the attestation and from the assessment itself. So in the similar way, this decision tree applies in a general way, but some other details should be verified in place when the assessment begins. So the first question we ask is if the communication interface is licensed to the client. If it is correct, the answer is yes, then the platform, the architecture type is A1. Otherwise, if it is no, but the messaging interface is licensed to the client, this is A2, and so on. Then we go for the Swift connector. If it is yes, it's A3. If it is no, then we go to verify architecture type A4, and so on. But again, there are many nuances and there are some notes behind. You can see there are type of connections to integrate the back office like Swift SDK. There are middleware. There are microwave ways, and I don't see the APIs here, but there are APIs also. So there are many nuances and gray areas to verify, but this decision tree is an instrument that Swift is asking to verify year over year, because even if the previous year it was classified, any change in the architecture, as I mentioned earlier, that a component could be connected with another internal connector with the general environment of the production system of the bank or the institution, then it has to be verified, because this could bring the other component, which doesn't belong to Swift, to be evaluated on the same criteria, under the same control. So between the other considerations, we have, well, I did some highlighting here and then we moved, so I will have to check that later. So my apologies for that error. And for outsourcing controls, they are highlighting that what is a critical activity for the CSP, for the Customer Security Program, and what is an outsourced agent. more or less it's the same explanation I gave earlier. And they also highlight the difference and what is not an outsourcing agent. Those clients who are connected to other services like to business applications, Partner Enabler, and Swift. I don't remember the name of this acronym. Is integrated platform. I don't remember exactly, but it's a service that Swift offers through partnership to the clients. And these kind of offerings, they have their own programs to comply with. So the clients doesn't have to comply directly to Swift if they are connected with these kind of service providers. In that case, what we usually ask or suggest to client is to verify with the partner that they are in compliance with Swift in the program they apply to, because otherwise then we will be in problems there if we are connected to them and they are not in compliance with their corresponding program. And then is another service, the Group Hub, that is another particular situation where this does not correspond to an outsourcing agent definition. Yeah, when we see the independent assessment alternatives, and in evaluation, during evaluation of Control 2.8, what Swift highlight is that the client could have its own team of independent assessors to assess the controls in place and the controls of the service provider, or the service provider can contract and execute the assessment themselves with their own independent assessors, or there is a combination between, the third case is a service provider report, which is usually a SOC 2 type 2 report. But according to some definitions in other documents from Swift, since they are asking an assessment instead of an audit, and they include as a difference an assessment in point in time instead of a complete operational effectiveness covering a period. So a type 2 in this case would be more than what they need, but it's usually what is published from a third party that contract a service, an assessor to make the report for all the clients they have. When it comes to Control 2.4, which again, it's advisory for 2024, but is planned to be phased during 2024. They have not said the dates, but I guess 2025 could be at least one of these two other phases. We are using Swift material in this presentation, so we have added this 0 here for 2024, indicating that, or highlighting that what Swift suggests is to make the identification of these back office flows of data between back office and the local, the secure zone, and to assess what is the security of these, to give room and space for the next year to implement the controls, what they call protect service and the flows, which is in other words, is to implement the controls to secure that flows of data, that data flow, and in a second phase, protect another kind of applications, which can be legacy applications or hardware that is included in this data flow for Control 2.8. So this is more or less the advices from Swift. Again, reflecting, this is not new information. This is published every year. What Swift highlight in this slide, in this graphic, is that every year during July, during the Q2, at the end of the Q2, quarter two, the customer security framework is published for the next year. So for this 2024 assessment, during July 2023, the customer security framework version 2024 was published. And so if expect that by the end of December 2024, every client could be filling out the attestation and the KYCSA. This is more or less what is said here. And well, we have titled this slide, When I Can Begin. Swift always, in the recent years, is publishing this slide, suggesting clients to begin. And I consider that from this slide, the most critical message is to plan for remediation, because since we are in constant changes in organizations, this particularly COVID-19, which accelerated the digital transformation in banks, which brings many changes internally, in addition to change of servers and architectures and outsourcing to the cloud some of our solutions. Those changes could be moving the control environment and relaxing some of the controls, even without noticing that internally in our organizations. So for that considerations, it's very important to plan for remediation time, so that when we or any other independent assessor who goes and objectively assess what is in place, what is the situation this year, and what was happening the previous year, there could be enough time to implement whatever remediation is required, again, to be transparent and objective with us, with assessor, with our partners, with the whole community, and with Swift and regulators also, because Swift is also highlighting year by year that they offer to regulators a similar screen as we have in customer security security attestation, KYCSA, for them to see which bank is not in compliance with the customer security program. So these are the main things I have to consider. So to begin with the attestation, even when Swift says, I don't know if it's included this in this slide, but they said we can begin the attestation in January 2024, but they stress this suggestion for July to give enough room to complete the evaluation, let's say 1 month, and to have enough time for any remediation that is required, and to be still on time to present our attestation in the KYC in compliance. Because if one of these controls, the mandatory controls, is not in compliance, the whole attestation is in non-compliance state. And this exposes our institution to the rest of the community with this situation that is not expected after 4 years of this program to be in place. So this is more or less the presentation we have prepared to share with you. If you have any question to this moment, I would ask our team, Ruben, Karina, or any other in the team who can be helping me monitoring the people or the questions, or if someone wants to open the microphone and speak, you are welcome. So I will stop asking and commenting.
Raul,
Yes.
just want to maybe if you can speak a little bit, or we are seeing that each year we are seeing some other controls that are becoming mandatory, not just advisor. People should expect that all those controls will be mandatory in just a few years. All those advisor controls should be mandatory.
Well, I've been taking the reviewing the material for the certification. I'm under preparation for that material. I have read a lot of documentation from Swift in order to approve that exam. And I have not seen something like that specifically. The only control that Swift is suggesting that is going to become mandatory is 2.4a, and what they have as in every year in the documentation for the controls and the CSCF itself, a list of minor changes. I think I have it here. I don't have any doubt that the attendees have access to this also, but we are here. Let me see. Yes, this I was reviewing before the presentation, the documents. So overview of changes, as you can see here, the only change here for this year is this one, and announcing the change for 2.4, and then a list of minor clarifications, which is this list that I didn't consider to bring them to discuss them in this session, because they are not like highly important for our reflection. So like, for example, this, taking just for example this one, control 2.1, internal data flow security. What the change they are making is that the same criteria from 2.4 applies to 2.1. The guidance of USB ports, movement of some words, interchanging some applicability between one control and another is more or less the changes that I have seen in the list of minor clarifications. What maybe I could add, I take notes here, is that we are in the preparation for this exam. So the clients, the attendees, can have the confidence that we are on the Swift rules. The company was already published in the directory, but the assessors are still in progress of being certified and approve the exam. So as I mentioned earlier during the presentation, also Swift is pushing the whole community to raise the bar of the quality of these assessments. And they are suggesting to use the templates that they offer. It is not mandatory to use those templates, but they expect that using them will raise the standardization of the whole assessment and the global community. So it means also it's something that comes along also is the quality of the whole assessment. And well, in disaster recovery, I mentioned in my notes, these are personal notes, that we should pay closer attention to disaster recovery platforms, because we have been more focused in production, which is fine, and during the first years of the assessments, this is correct. However, the disaster recovery is a second very important platform and architecture to verify in a more detailed aspect. So yes, with that, if we don't have any other question, then I have to appreciate everyone's time. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we expect to share these slides and the recording. So other colleagues who are not able to attend the session can be able to listen to them and write to us if there is any question that is raised afterwards. So we are in the best position to help you in that aspect. So we are into this from the very beginning of the process, when the control from the security program began, and we have been coming along with Swift hand in hand to help clients with these evaluations, assessments. So yeah, you have the confidence that we are very close with the technicalities to help you, and also with higher requirements as internal audit departments, depending on the institution you are working for. to help you. So for that, thank you very much to all. I will pass the control to Ruben, which is the background of this session, so he can give the final words also. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you, Raul, and thank you for all your time. And thank you for all of the people who attend this webinar. See you, have a nice day.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.